Kraus pumps once, is in trouble, eludes a tackle, gets out of the end zone. He's to the 5, he's to the 10, Kraus to the 15, out across the 20, Kraus to the 25, out across the 30, 35, 40, look out, he could go, he's to the 40, he's to the 30, he's to the 20, he's to the 10, he's all the way!
Right on the end. The snap is down. The kick is up. The kick is on its way, and the kick is He bangs it in there. 57 yards out of school record to put the Huskers in front, 33-31.
To the near side. Kellogg gets a shotgun snap. Final play of the game. Ron waiting for the wideouts to get downfield. Launches the throw down toward the goal line. Going up. Ball tipped in the air. Caught! Touchdown! Jordan Westerkamp! Nebraska wins the game on the final play of the contest! Oh, baby!
Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! What a scene in Lincoln, baby! Woo!
Deep for Nebraska. Here's Wiley's kick. It's high. It holds up there. Rogers takes the ball at the 30. He's hit and got away. Back upfield to the 35, to the 40. He's to the 45. He's to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 20, to the 10. He's all the way home. Holy moly. Man, woman, and child did that. Put him in the aisle. Johnny the Jet Rogers just tore them loose from their shoes.
That is a heck of a long intro about football when we're mostly going to be talking about basketball. And some interesting personnel changes. Joining me is Robert Behrens from our SB Nation Texas A&M site. Good bull hunting, which I've never really understood what that means. But you've been you're an Aggie graduate 2005. Can I ask what you graduated in?
I was a journalism major, so this is right up my alley, I suppose.
All right.
Would you like me to explain the good bull hunting name? Because it takes just a sec. So obviously a play on goodwill hunting, but in Aggie kind of lore, we have our own kind of glossary of terms and phrases. But good bull is essentially just when someone does something that's really good or just something that has a lot of school spirit. So like if someone does something really awesome, people say, "Oh, that's good bull." So that's where the name comes from.
I actually worked at Texas A&M years ago.
Oh, really?
When I was like a teenager, I would go to work in the summers for my brother who had a business in Dallas, and we put in fire alarm systems and professional sound systems. And I actually put in around 1980 there was an upgrade to Kyle Field, and I put the sound system in. I mean, not by myself, obviously, and and the fire alarm system into Kyle Field. And you want to hear the story about my Texas A&M story?
Yeah, always.
Okay. I'm young, okay, and I don't understand the Texas A&M battle rivalry. And one of my last days on the job, the last week I was going to be there, two things happened. This is the first story. I went to a T-shirt shop and I said, I want a shirt that says Texas sucks. Because I wanted to shove it to all these Texas A&M people that were giving me constant crap about being from Nebraska. And the guy looked at me and he goes, I assume you want that in Texas colors. And I said, well, yeah. And he gives me this burnt orange shirt that says Texas sucks in big white letters. And I don't understand that it's Texas Longhorn stuff because I'm naive and I'm young. And I go to the job site the next day and we weren't allowed to wear that kind of stuff. You couldn't wear anything with lettering on it. The general contractor is very strict. Hard hats, couldn't go shirtless, had to wear decent stuff. No symbols, anything like that. And I go there and people are like, yeah, all right, hey, man. And at one point during the day, I am up on a ladder. I'm on a 12-foot ladder and I'm working on this like fire alarm panel or some kind of, light or I can't remember what it was. And these like 15 people in suits walked by. And one of them looks up and he goes, wow, you guys are really getting into this job, aren't you? And I have no idea what he means. And this other guy that was leading him goes, come down here, son. And of course I come down there, and every one of them lines up and they're shaking my hands and telling me what a great guy I am and how spirited it is, and it's wonderful that I'm working on this construction project at Kyle Field. So there's one of my Texas A&M stories.
Yes, that backfired catastrophically.
Yeah, but it's a good story. And,
it
turned out pretty well. People, were like, you're leaving us, you're going away. It was kind of nice. Everybody was nice to me for the last week or so I was there.
Good.
But you took Trev Alberts from us. What's your first impression?
So to be honest, until the hire was made, I didn't know much about Trev. In fact, I knew of him from when he played at Nebraska. I knew of him from his time at ESPN. But if you had asked me 2 weeks ago who the AD at Nebraska was, I don't think I'd be able to tell you. That said, obviously when you get a guy hired and you bring him in, you have the press conference, you start to learn a lot real quick. He comes off as very impressive. Definitely just seems like a guy who, he talked in his opening press conference about his time at Omaha and how he kind of just didn't know what the heck he was doing, and he just learned on the job, and he basically is a self-taught, businessman / athletic director. And that's really impressive, just to have that drive and that ambition to kind of know what you don't know and go out and figure it out. And so we're thrilled to have him, man. Obviously it's only literal days into it, but certainly I think making a great first impression.
Well, I will say about Trev Alberts is that he is good in front of a camera. He's good. He is polished. The ESPN stuff. He's very good at speaking. He's very good at public stuff. And I'm gonna listen. All the aura surrounding, or what people know about Texas A&M, is that you're all dysfunctional. You have tons of donors that are constantly influencing stuff. Let's start with that. At Nebraska, he might have had one or two donor families that were a little bit hands-on-y, meddling type, maybe. Is there going to be a lot of that at Texas A&M, or are they pretty hands-off?
I'm certainly not fully in the know on that. My impression has always been, I think from the donor perspective, A&M fans are so just desperate for a winner and desperate for success that I think there's not a whole lot of meddling or questioning on that side. It's just folks are tired of kind of footing the bill and doing what we feel like is necessary to be a competitor, and that not paying off.
Right.
I know that was, for so many folks, I think that was part of the driving factor in deciding to give Jimbo that massive buyout. Was obviously that's a huge amount of money that no one has just $76 million lying around. I don't care how well funded your athletic department is. But I think just any hope of him turning the program around had pretty much evaporated. And so you may save a little bit of money on his buyout if you wait another year or two, but what are you doing to your donor base? Does it just dry up? People saying, I'm not going to keep giving and giving and giving when we have zero expectation of it paying off.
Right.
So I think both with the head football coach and I think that kind of trickles down into now the athletic director change. Anytime you bring new guys in, there's always the renewed optimism of, this is going to be the time that we get it right.
Right.
And so I think it definitely is, it's given folks a little bit more optimism, and it, energized the fan base without a doubt.
Well, your other guy left for Ohio State. Did he need to leave? Were people like, get the hell out of here? Or
yeah, I think it was time to part ways on both sides. I think a lot of folks didn't like the way that it got handled of Texas coming into the SEC. Not just the fact that Texas did it, but some of the public statements that Ross Bjork, our former athletic director, put out there kind of just didn't paint A&M in a very positive light. And I think the real nail in the coffin was, as I'm sure the entire nation saw, the kind of fumbling of our coaching hire, where it looked like they tried to hire Mark Stoops and then there was a backlash and they undid it and walked it back, and we ended up with Mike Elko. A lot of the behind the scenes things around that are still a little bit shrouded in mystery. But it certainly seems like once that happened, that was a major fumbling by the athletic department in general, and so no one was too shocked when Bjork was looking elsewhere pretty soon afterward.
Okay, your university is run by a former 4-star general, and I didn't write his name down.
Mark Welsh.
Okay. I guess when I looked at that and I thought, okay, when Trev Alberts goes there, is he really going to be free to make a lot of decisions, or is everything controlled by? I made the comment, I think Monday night on my show, that he will get to be able to make 2 decisions. One of them is when he goes to work, and the other is when he goes to the bathroom. And I'm not even sure about the first one. So is that true, or will he have actually a lot of leeway?
I think with General Welch, it's been glowing reviews. He's actually not been in that position permanently all that long. A&M not long ago was kind of in a similar position as Nebraska is, where we had kind of a little bit of a revolving door at the president position. And it was just last summer that we had one president that kind of unceremoniously resigned. Welch actually had been I believe the dean of the business school, and he moved into the interim role and essentially was so well received and so respected across the university, eventually got that role permanently. Just as far as the university dynamics go, honestly, I think he needs to worry less about the university president and more about the board of regents. A&M and that board of regents, especially John Sharp, who's been the chancellor of that board for decades now. He wields a big stick, both I think at Texas A&M and also just in the state in general. So that is a situation where I think if you're going to see someone try to exert influence, it's probably going to be from that side. And that's something that you'll hear plenty of Aggies kind of gripe about, because, at some point you bring someone in to do a job, you want them to be able to be empowered to do that job. And hopefully that'll be the case. But it's just like any big organization, there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of red tape, and I'm sure that's the case most places.
We're going to go through some comments. Justin Rogge says, Robert, sorry about Trev. We understand if you switch to Nebraska. So there you go, man. You just get rid of that Aggie stuff in the background there, and you'll be fine. Fred Sacca, who's a regular, says, oh, Robert, sweet summer child, will tell you all you need to know about him. Obviously, Nebraska fans were not happy with him. Fred Sacco also says in 3 years, if you guys don't have to fire him, he will leave for the commissioner of college football job when they create it. That is the one thing about Alberts, that he was always kind of on the lookout. He really wants to be like a Big Ten commissioner or a mucky muck way up here guy. And I think there was a lot of people that speculated why he left Nebraska is because Texas A&M is in the SEC and it's another conference and it's a step up to try to get up into the, and where guys sit around on committees and they get paid a lot of money to go, yeah, that's what I think too, Bob, stuff like that. So, and then there's Bone-Led Corn-Fed asks, so does this guy know why Trev left? That's you.
Oh, it depends what we're talking about.
Let's see. The Beetle Bee says, are the coaches down with this? We have an excellent coaching staff. That's our backbone now. Okay, if you guys haven't heard the news today for Nebraska, everything just changed again today. Fred Hoiberg got a coaching extension, men's basketball coach. Amy Williams, women's basketball coach, got a contract extension. Let's see. Nebraska Board of Regents selected Jeffrey Gold as the priority candidate for the next Nebraska president. When Trev left, he complained that there was a lack of leadership. And all of this stuff has happened, like bing, boom, boom. And then we also hired a new athletic director away from Washington who'd only been there for 5 months. Troy Dannon, I believe it is, was at Northern Iowa, got his athletic director start at Northern Iowa and spent 8 years at Tulane. And now went to Washington for 5 months, and now he's hit ours. So I think everybody's past the Trev Alberts stuff. Well, what we're
yeah,
not,
I mean, and that's one of those, it's like, and I certainly get the angst because I think someone on the A&M side, I heard they compared it to, back in the 90s, we had Dat Wynn, who was like, legendary, like
right?
greatest linebacker in
Yes.
A&M history. If he came here and he was our athletic director, I think we would all assume like, okay, he's going to be here like for as long as we'll have him. And if he left to go somewhere else, we'd all be pretty pissed and we'd all feel pretty jaded. So I think I absolutely get that sentiment. Even if you think he was doing a great job, it's okay to be mad, like, because it does feel like a little bit of a betrayal when it's a guy who's supposed to be, one of Nebraska's own.
Well, I'm over him.
Yeah.
Because we have a new shiny guy to complain about if he does anything wrong. And since we're over Trev Alberts, we can just move right on to basketball. Because somehow, it just happened to work out in the seeding and all the universe stars aligned that we play the Aggies in both the first rounds of both the men's and women's tournament.
Yeah, what are the odds?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, what? No, let me get rid of these. What should we start with men or start with women?
We can start with the women. Let's do it.
Okay. So, well, I guess tell us about your women's basketball team. I have other people that cover women's basketball. I've been watching it lately, because we played Iowa, for God's sakes, in the Big Ten championship game. Yeah. And if we play Iowa, you have to watch if you're a Nebraska fan, because we all hate Iowa's guts with a passion, much like you guys hate Texas.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Women's basketball team.
Well, I'm not going to, purport to be an expert on A&M women's basketball. That said, this is our second year under head coach Joni Taylor. Actually came over to A&M from Georgia. And A&M fans really as a whole, we're just thrilled to have our team back in the tournament. Okay. Certainly in the last couple years of the Gary Blair era, Gary Blair was a legend at A&M. He won a national title. The court's named after him, but probably did stay a year or two too long as far as just you kind of saw the program in decline. And so last year, the team won 2 games in SEC play in Joni Taylor's first season.
Really?
So you definitely saw like there was a lot of work to be done. So just to be back in the tournament 1 year later, I think speaks to hopefully the trajectory of that program. And that the SEC is certainly no picnic in women's hoops, especially when you got South Carolina and LSU up there at the top. But
right.
So I have no predictions as far as like if we're gonna pull the upset here or how far we go. But from an A&M perspective, I mean, we're just thrilled that team is back on the right track and certainly seems to be heading in the right direction. And we have a team in March Madness that we get to cheer for.
So do you have any standout players that we should be aware of?
You're going to expose my ignorance. Our best player, I would say, it's India Taylor. I may have gotten her last name wrong, and if I do, I profusely apologize. But she actually missed a good chunk of the season and just came back recently. So if you wanted to try to make the case of A&M being a sleeper, that might be it, is that she's kind of just gotten back into the fold. But like I said, I don't want to go too in depth because I'm just going to expose how much I don't know.
Okay, if you have A&M fans watching this, here's what you need to look for. We have Jazz Selly, senior guard. She's from Australia. She's been, she's been Caitlin Clark, but not at that level. She shoots extremely well from 3. She directs the ball extremely well. We also have Alex Markowski, post player that also is versatile enough to be able to shoot 3s. And then we have 2 freshman players, Logan Nisley and Natalie Potts. And now I like Nebraska's women's basketball team. I think they look really good. I don't know what the odds are for the women's basketball game. I know this, that Nebraska needs to win both of these games. Otherwise, we take this personally and we'll just go like, our women's basketball team has done decently throughout the years. And we're going to switch to men. And literally our men's program has never won an NCAA tourney game. We are the worst power conference basketball team in the history of basketball, history of college basketball. If you want to make the argument, people could make the argument that we're not, but until we get that monkey off our back, that's who we are. And you talked about being happy that your women are back. I think it's been 10 years for our men, and we get paired up with Texas A&M, and we're all like, what the hell is this? So do you know the men's basketball program?
I do. I can speak much more prevalently on the men. So the A&M basketball team, almost like the opposite of what I talked about with the women. Of women over in year 2 of a coaching staff, and we're glad to be here. With the men, we're in year 5. It's our second year making the tournament, but in year 5 and still have not won a conference game under Buzz Williams. So I think it definitely kind of feels like a time to prove that he actually is moving the team in the right direction, because this team's had a lot of regular season success. I think last year we're like 15-3 in SEC play. The previous 2 years we made it to the SEC tournament championship game, but we just haven't had that March Madness win. And so I know it's not the same as having the monkey of never ever winning a game.
Yeah.
But still, for your coach who's in year 5, Buzz is making decent money. Certainly A&M fans are ready to see the team take that next step. And just, as a fan who, I think we've all had, our emotional scars from our fandom over the years, and there's always a part of you that kind of is expecting the worst to happen. And so when you're facing a team that has never won a tournament game before, it means that you could potentially lose and be that first tournament win in their entire history. and no one wants to be that. So for A&M fans, even outside of all of the Trev Alberts stuff, because I know that, I'm sure there'd be a lot of online bragging about y'all beating A&M just from that perspective. But I can tell you there's a lot of Longhorn fans and other A&M rivals that would love to talk about how, Nebraska had never, ever won a tournament game. Until they got to play the Aggies. So
I didn't think about that perspective. Oh, yes. I look forward to that too.
Yeah.
So I looked up some things about your teams. You guys rebound very well.
Yeah.
Right? And
so I'll kind of break that down for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so rebounding by far the team's biggest strength, and especially offensive rebounding. They really crash the boards, get a lot of second chance opportunities, and honestly, that is maybe the best part of A&M's offense is the second chance points, because a lot of there's not a lot of offensive cohesion. They're extremely streaky with 3-point shooting.
Okay.
And really the offense for a good chunk of the season was really just 2 guys, which was Wade Taylor and Boots Radford. That was really kind of like the 1-2 punch. Now recently you've seen Manny Obaseki kind of come on as kind of a legit third scoring option, and that's actually helped A&M a ton, especially they've won 5 out of their last 6, and that's a big part of that, is just having a third option that teams actually have to account for. And then defensively, and this is where Nebraska kind of scares me too, is the one thing that A&M does is, because they're so aggressive on going after rebounds, they are very bad about, a guy will drive, everyone collapses to try to, close off the lane or try to get a board, and then they kick it out to a wide open 3-point shooter.
Right.
And A&M all season, that's been, at this point, it seems like it's just a by design thing that they're willing to accept, is that they're going to give up a lot of open threes. And so if you get a team that shoots a lot of threes like Nebraska likes to, if y'all are knocking them down, it could be a long day for us.
Well, I did see somebody put the graph together about threes defending and threes, it advantages of 3 shooting, and Texas A&M was a way outlier all by themselves.
Yeah.
In terms of giving up 3-pointers. And I thought, oh my God, because Nebraska here's the thing. Nebraska all season was the best team in the Big Ten at home, and they were the worst team in the Big Ten on the road. And I think for us, it's going to be interesting to see how they do going to Memphis and if there can be any kind of energy. I mean, they have to bring their own juice, basically, is what the line is. They have to figure out how to create their own energy. And, Keisei Tamanaga is the guy. Nebraska's team is this. I describe it like this. Nebraska doesn't have a player. You know what I mean? They don't have like if you watch Illinois basketball, they have this, what is it, Terrence Shannon. That guy is like most of the team. If he didn't exist, they'd probably be a 500 team and wouldn't have won the Big Ten. Nebraska, Keisei Tamanaga is a guy who's fun to watch. He's an incredible 3-point shooter, incredible player on offense. He's a little bit sketchy on defense sometimes. And if he's on, God help you, because he can shoot threes with the blanket over his head. Honest to God. And the other thing is if he's not on, then C.J. Wilcher might be shooting well. Nebraska has a whole gob of guys that can just play basketball. So I think the thing has been interesting for us to watch this season is that, one night some guy will be bad and somebody else will just go, well, I'll score 30 points then. And, it just is varied throughout the season.
Yeah. A&M has been exceptionally hot and cold this year because, and that showed on their resume. That was one of the biggest things that held them back and why they were a bubble team, kind of really down until the very end was because, you look at the resume, like they beat Iowa State and Tennessee, who were 2 seeds. They beat Kentucky twice, who's a 3 seed. A&M, took Kentucky down to the wire in Houston. I'm sorry, not Kentucky. They took Houston down to the wire in Houston, ended up losing by 4. So like they have games where like they're on their game and they can really truly beat almost anybody. But then we lost to Arkansas twice. We lost at Vanderbilt. Right. We lost just some like inexcusable games where, there's just no way you should be losing to those teams. And so it very much is like, you just wonder like which A&M team is going to show up. If it's the team that beat Kentucky twice, I think we are, in really good shape. But you don't know if you're going to get that team or if you're going to get the team that showed up another half dozen times throughout the year.
So who should we be watching for? I mean, is your team full of like giant guys? Have you seen Zach Edey from Purdue?
Yeah, he's a monster. No, so A&M, like going into the year, our center was supposed to be Julius Marble. He's not played an entire minute all season. He's out for a undisclosed reason. The scuttlebutt is maybe it's something academic, but it's never actually been confirmed. But point is that like if A&M has a weakness, it is the the bigs in the middle. But guard play is really where A&M excels, and especially with Wade Taylor and Boots Radford. It wouldn't be surprising if those 2 guys combined for 50 points. And it really is kind of like if Wade's hitting his shots, then it's normally game over. But it's like they've been very hot and cold over the course of the year, so it's been very unpredictable.
So where do I go next? Foul problems. I haven't watched national basketball a lot. I have watched a fair amount of Big Ten basketball, and I don't know what you guys do in the SEC about your officiating, but I think every game is in the Big Ten and basketball is just like an officiating nightmare. Do you have any fears about how this game is going to be officiated in terms of, oh God, if they call that guy for 2 fouls in the first 10 minutes, we're going to be in trouble, that kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. Because A&M does, especially defensively, A&M does try to play very physical. And so if it is a game where the refs are really just calling ticky-tack stuff early, it would be very easy for those A&M guys to get in foul trouble. And A&M does not have an exceptionally deep bench. Like they really rotate like 7 or 8 guys. And so you take out 1 or 2 guys because they get 2 fouls in the first 6 minutes. That could definitely be something where, A&M struggles. But we are a team, like I said, play very physical on defense, and they do generally do pretty well of getting to the line a ton on offense, just doing a lot of driving to the lane. If there is a downside to that, is that A&M's not actually a great free throw shooting team.
They're not?
No. I think they're shooting like 65% or something.
Oh my God.
It's mind numbing. And like, once again, that's led to, there have been games where it's like, well, we lost by 2 and we missed 7 free throws. So
Nebraska has actually done very well there. I don't know what their team percentage overall is, but we have not had, like I said, everybody knows we've not been a very good basketball program. But the one thing that has been cleaned up very well is free throw shooting. And then, I think shooting overall, we do have a number of guys that can just shoot the ball. And I think the other thing you're going to see from us is tough defense.
Yeah,
is Nebraska is really. People talk about our 3-point shooting a lot, but I think it's the defense that's really stood out when they've, played well and won big games and things like that. So, Garrett, go ahead.
As far as pace, like, how does Nebraska like to play?
I don't think they're a fast team. Wow, that's a good question. Medium.
Yeah.
They're not Virginia.
All right.
Put it this way. Who did that? Somebody asked this. Linda Wilkins says, is A&M as good as Virginia?
Oh, man, I made so many Virginia jokes last night. Oh, they look so terrible. But no, yeah, we're not Virginia, for sure. A&M's like, we're not like a plodding, like, slow it down team, but we don't like getting into track meets, because that's kind of what happened to us against Florida in the SEC tournament. Is Florida wants to just go up and down the court against you, and we're kind of bad that we'll get lulled into that, even though that's not really A&M's game. We'll push it in transition, but for the most part, A&M's very much like a half court offense.
I think that the one thing is I think if Nebraska could get into that position where they could run and move a lot, they'd take advantage of it. And the reason why they'd probably take advantage of it is because we have just gobs of guys that can play basketball.
Yeah.
So they have fair amount of depth across the board. Probably the one thing we might have not as much depth is big guys. We have Rank Mast and Rank Mast. Come on, I'm missing a guy. Mater Deep got into the game against Illinois, Big Ten in the Big Ten tourney. He has barely played all season, and I'm missing another name. Good grief.
Yeah, yeah. A&M's like we've got several guys who are in like kind of 6'7" to 6'9" range, but no, just like monsters in the middle.
But Rank Mass can also get hot and start shooting threes left and right too. So
yeah. That's the game now, man.
Okay. Here's the guy that I wanted to bring up. Thank you, Justin Rogge. Alec. Josiah Alec. Okay. Josiah Alec is a guy with a big bushy head of hair.
Okay.
And he plays like that hair is on fire all of the time. Literally going after, he's a big guy. He plays basketball like he's a linebacker.
Yeah.
And he goes after loose balls, doesn't care who gets in his way. Once he decides to go to the basket, he's going to the basket. And he's another guy that's really fun to watch.
And I will say, along those same lines, another guy to watch for A&M is Anderson Garcia. So he's like not an elite offensive player. I'd say he's opportunistic on offense, but he is very much like he is like a just phenomenal rebounder. He is exactly like you were saying, the guy who he'll get his hands dirty going for loose balls, kind of just does all the hustle plays, all the little things that you want all your players to do. But that's him every time he's on the floor. And he's nowhere near the most talented guy, but he's played himself into a really crucial role for A&M just because he's just that guy that does all the little things right.
Linda Wilkins reminds me he's 6'8", Alec. He's not 6'8". He's like 7'5" and with the hair.
Yeah, the hair counts.
I think you got to count that,
Yeah.
David Matney says Alec's hair reminds me of Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons.
That's exactly what I was picturing. So I'm glad that's true.
That's it. Anything else we need to go through?
No, man. It's exciting. Yeah, I know. Like, there's been, if you've been like on Twitter or anything else, I think there's been a fair amount of like back and forth with A&M and Nebraska fans, just with all the Trev stuff, and now obviously the tournament. But ultimately, I think both sides are really kind of known as being relatively cordial, respectful fan bases when it's all said and done. So, like, I'm looking forward to Friday, man. I just think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a great time, especially having both games on Friday night. Like so where you can watch the men's game and then go grab some dinner and then settle in for the women's game after. Like that's all you can ask for as far as March Madness is concerned.
That's true. You want another A&M story?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I can't remember which year it is because I'm old. But that project, I think, ran either a year or 2 years long. I want to say a year long. And that's normal for construction.
Oh, yeah.
All the guys on construction jobs usually like work at a miserly pace. And then they suddenly go, we got to get this done. Everybody gets overtime. And then everybody's like, ah! Okay, so it's August. This is, again, one of my last days at Texas A&M. And I have to return back to Nebraska to go back to maybe high school or my first year of college, maybe. But I am up. It's probably 8:30, 8 o'clock at night because we're working overtime. And I think I'm up in the media box, but it's a big box and I'm with like a bunch of electricians and me. And some guy drives onto Kyle Field in an Audi Fox in a brand new AstroTurf. The guy drives out on the field and burns a kitty at about the 25-yard line. And he burns this big, huge patch in this brand new football field.
Oh,
and
man.
Then he drives off. And the electricians I'm with, they go ballistic. They're like, we're going to find this guy and kill him. Because at that point, everybody spent so much time on this job that it was like we were living there and, it was our place until we get to turn it over to people that are, like, electricians, who are they? And the police come up and they talk to us, and the electricians are like, if you find him, let us know who he is, that kind of stuff. But, that's what happened in the last few days there. And then I watched Texas A&M on TV because I wanted to see what the stadium looked like on TV. And there was that big patch of burned. If you knew what it was, you knew where to look for it. And we were all like, oh, my God.
That's funny.
I think the other thing was I was walking across the grass one time.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and two guys came up behind me, gently lifted me off the ground and walked me over to the sidewalk and looked at me and said, we do not walk here on the grass here at Texas A&M. And I was like, what the fuck is this about?
To be clear, that's not everywhere.
Is that true?
Well, it's not the whole campus. What it is is at the student center. So it's the Memorial Student Center.
Okay.
And so the student center is actually a like memorial for all of the Aggies that have died in American wars. And so because of that, like when you're in the student center, you take off your hat. When you're outside, you stay off the grass. So that's
okay.
The reason.
That was probably where I was then. Then I remember Dixie Chicken and Dudley's Drawl.
Oh yeah, both still there.
Really? All right. Okay.
Now, just about every other bar on Northgate, which is A&M's little bar district, just about everything else is, it's like changed names and owners 5 times probably. But yeah, Dudley's and the Chicken, they're still there, man.
All right. Do we have anything else we need to cover? Wait, do you guys in the comments, do you have any more questions? There you go. Aaron Keene says, John, the unifier, common ground. We all hate Texas.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I will say that's as much as A&M fans would have loved for Texas to just kind of languish in the Big 12. Now that it's happening, it's going to be so great to get that game back again. Obviously in football, but just across the board. Have a weekend series in baseball. Have multiple games a year in basketball and every other sport. Because we haven't played those guys and been in the same conference in over a decade, but you go on Twitter and you would never know that those teams don't play each other, because that's all it's all of our fan bases do is just go at each other over the stupidest things. And so it's going to be very refreshing to actually have games to talk about. And so when someone tries to lord something really trivial over you, you just say, hey, scoreboard, go away.
I miss playing our games against that son of a bitch Aggie Garrido too. So
he was a good baseball coach, though.
He was. I say that affectionately. Fred Sacco says, Robert, serious question. What's the temperature of the Aggie fans, Texas A&M fans, far as the Trev hire? Excited or already read my grievances and hating?
No, we are definitely excited. I mean, but I always try to caveat that with anytime, whether it's a football coach, a basketball coach, like when it's this new, it's very easy to win a press conference. It's very easy to be excited right now. And I don't say that to knock Trev at all. But anytime you have a new hire, there's going to be a lot of optimism around it. So certainly we're excited. He said all the right things. But
did you not
the proof is in the pudding.
Did you not think it was weird that he was tweeting back at Nebraska? I mean, come on.
So are you talking about, because I saw like whenever Nebraska hired the interim AD, I think he tweeted about that and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see both sides because I'm sure because it's people that he knows well, so he's wanting to say congratulations. But I do get that, like, if you're a Nebraska fan, you want to be like, hey, keep our name out of your mouth. So
yeah, it's like we broke up and he's like, I'm calling to see how you're doing. Bullshit.
Yeah. It has been funny. Like every time he tweets, even if it's like about A&M or something innocuous, like it's just the replies are just Nebraska fan, Nebraska fan, Nebraska fan. And I'm sure that's going to go on for a while, and that's understandable. But that's just fandom.
I just blocked him. I thought, you know what? I'm going to pay attention to the good things. And yeah. I think the thing with these basketball games coming up is I hope they're about the players.
I agree.
Because the Nebraska men's basketball team especially has the chance to literally be a historical team and get this monkey off our back. It'll come at your expense, but screw you, Robert.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for both sides, I think, whichever team wins, there's going to be like a few moments of kind of like jabbing the other fan base based on the athletic director stuff. But very quickly, I think it'll just move on to celebrate the win and then get ready for the next round because you're playing again in 2 days. So yeah, it's like, I agree. It's the media is going to play up the storyline, but ultimately, we both no one actually wants to win because of the athletic director stuff. They want to win because they want to see their team keep on going.
Survive in advance.
Absolutely.
All right. You know what? I think that'll do it. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for letting me tell my Texas A&M stories. I almost got killed there a few times.
Haven't we all?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for joining me. Good luck, but not on Friday.
For sure. Same thing to you, man.
I do wish you the best of luck with Trev Alberts. I'm gonna take this moment and dismiss all the negativity I've had for him and just go. We'll all just move on because we have new shiny new toys at Nebraska to talk
Appreciate
about.
you taking the high road.
Take care, Robert.
You too, man.